The number one thing beginner artists struggle with? Anatomy. Maybe you dive into crazy poses too early, maybe studies bore you. Hi fellow ADHD Zoomers. Either way, your characters look off. This video isn't going to be an individual breakdown of each and every piece of the body telling you how to draw, but a more generalized help that at least helped me with my anatomy. And don't get me wrong, I'm definitely still learning how to make this right. So one of the first things to understand when drawing the body is how to simplify. I know you've probably heard this a million times, but it's because it's really just what you have to do. Even when going for a more realistic piece in order to get down the general form, simplifying will be your best course of action. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, when we observe the human body, there are shapes that each piece holds. The pieces that I use are cylinders for the arms and legs, and then boxes for the general torso shape and head. Now, keep in mind, this is just to get the general idea of what the body is going to be doing, not an exact representation of how it will look. As I've gotten better, I've actually dropped the cylinders on the legs and arms and instead just used lines and circles to indicate where joints are and then draw the arms and legs around them. This method works for me due to my more simple anatomy I use on my characters. I know this isn't exactly a brand new original idea to do anatomy like this, and for a long time I was struggling with making proportions either too long or too short, or one thigh bigger than the other. That is, until fairly recently, it may be a mix of me getting better overall, but also this book I found from a different YouTube video. Yes, believe it or not, I was once a young artist looking for videos on how to improve too one day, when I came across this book with a lot of art and references I used to see on Pinterest before AI flooded the website. It's a Chinese anatomy book. I'll leave the link to its Amazon in the bio below. Now, full disclaimer. It's all in Mandarin, so unless you're bilingual, you're either using Google Lens or treating it like a picture book for artists. But even without reading it, just the examples in the book are amazing and have really helped me learn. One of the breakdowns in this book is having a box for the general direction everything is going to be facing. This may seem like, yeah, no duh, but as I was learning to draw people the past few years have become adamant against using boxes for anatomy, as they aren't organic, which I am inclined to agree, and I'm obviously not as skilled as the person that made the book, so I needed a way to shape this to my skill level. So I broke it down even more, and once the boxes are in play and I like the pose of them, that's when I start sketching the body on a new layer over the boxes, using the boxes to help direct the way everything is facing, and that leads me into the second part of my process. I roughly doodle in the character, and I always draw them naked on the first pass. This way, I don't have to worry about clothing folds and how they're dressed just yet, just purely focusing on the anatomy of the character and making sure everything looks correct and ready to go. At this stage, we should still be keeping it simplified and just drawing the general shapes of everything. It doesn't need to be perfect just yet, and this is where I think a lot of beginner artists diverge and why when you create a character, it ends up looking off. You don't have to just jump from sketch one to finished piece, do refinement sketch layers. This is something I don't see talked about very much. The first sketch is naked, with no face, no hair. Once the body is down, then do a refinement sketch for the face and the hair, one for the clothes, and so on and so forth. Not only will this help making sure what you're drawing is to the standard of what you want, but it'll also help get your brain to know how things are done and help develop your skill and art style. Drawing a forearm once is nice and all, but drawing it 4 times for a character will get it through how you do it and how you like to do it. And eventually, you won't need to do it 4 times. Eventually, the initial sketch layer will be good enough. Okay, so now that we've got the process down, boxes, cylinders, naked sketch pass, refinement layers, let's actually break down the body piece by piece. Because even if you simplify, you still need a general map of where everything goes. Think of it like assembling an IKEA chair. Yeah, you can wing it, but you're gonna end up with a wobbly mess if you don't know which parts connect where. So let's get a bit deeper into it, so the more advanced in the class can walk away learning something as well. First, let's focus on what will certainly make things look wonky if you don't get it right. The head. When constructing the head, you should make sure that the length and width of it meets 2 criteria. Keep in mind that this will change with certain stylizations, but starting with the length, it's safe to generally put the amount of heads you should be able to stack next to the character is 7. And the width of the head from the shoulder to shoulder is 2 to 3. There's a whole construction of the face, but I'm going to save that for a deeper dive into the head in another video. Just keep in mind, if your shoulders are as wide as a fridge, then congrats, you drew Giga Chad. And if they're too skinny, well, then you might be a great Funko Pop designer. Next up is the torso, consisting of the ribcage and the pelvis. Now, I've already explained my box method, but the step after that is that the rib cage is more egg-shaped, smaller at the top and wider at the bottom. Starting with the boxes may help with finding the second part here, but with enough practice, we can just skip that part of the process. And then the pelvis area, I also break into a box and then round it out for a more organic shape. And this one does depend on the type of character that you're making. Male or female will change, and even more so when deciding if they are fit, are they fat, or are they hourglass shaped. But with this, like I said, I use another box, but this one will be bent in the direction I need for the character to shape out to. And just a quick tip for more dynamic poses, just think of these two shapes attached by a spring or something, so if you tilt at the top, you tilt at the bottom as well, to add motion and something interesting to look at. Now, to make them not a quad amputee, with this I start with much less structured than the body personally, but I'm going to show you how I started because I think it may be a bit too messy to show how I draw now, and then you'll get lost in the sauce of trying something new when you still need to learn the fundies. The arms and legs are more or less the same when it comes to general construction, so first we're going to start with a ball for the pivot point on the torso, then a cylinder for the bicep/thigh sections of the limbs, and then another ball for the pivot point of the elbow/knees. And here's where the arms and legs differ. Elbows bend behind the body and knees bend in front of it. So make sure you don't accidentally break your character's limbs, or else they might curse you for bringing you into this world like that. And with that, this is where I'm going to cut off telling you about anatomy tips. I know I didn't go over hands or feet, but that's because those deserve your attention on their own. What I recommend you do now is go and work on some torso practice with maybe just the thigh and bicep areas so you can get used to what we've gone over today. You don't want to overwhelm your brain with new information too quickly. We aren't AI after all. But yeah, go and sketch torsos in different positions and different angles so you aren't trying to learn multiple different complex body structures at once, and you can fall back onto something comfortable when learning new steps later down the road. So yeah, your anatomy doesn't have to suck forever. Boxes, cylinders, refinement, it's not glamorous, but it works. Next time, we'll talk about pushing anatomy so your characters stop looking stiff and start looking alive.